Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today, I'm going to be taking up more of your questions in a segment of Ask Judy. If you enjoy these, please do hit like and subscribe. This question is from Eurogirl, who said this is a question about the episode The Collision, Season 4, Episode 24. It sounded like Selena called John Boy Jonathan Walton when she was trying to persuade him to run off to Spain with her where he could write and she could illustrate his stories. Did I hear this correctly? Is that his real full first name, or was she just romanticizing his name because it sounded more like an author than John? I looked back at that, and indeed, she does call him, she says, Jonathan Walton.
Imagine Jonathan Walton and Selena Linville reporting from Valencia.
I never heard him called that before or ever after. So I don't think Jonathan was his actual first name. So likely she was just romanticizing and imagining what his byline would be. And then you also said, and while asking about names, I just heard Elizabeth's middle name was Tyler for the first time.
Mary Ellen and Jason are fighting over your room. It bled a little, but Grandma wrapped it up. Love, your sister, Elizabeth Tyler Walton.
I couldn't find an explanation, but I did find that there was a popular comic strip during the 30s called, I think, Lucky Tom Tyler. So maybe they felt lucky to have another baby and gave her that name. Any insights? That was in the episode The Fledgling, when Elizabeth sends John Boy a letter and signs it Elizabeth Tyler Walton. It's the first and only time I ever recall hearing her middle name. So I have no idea why that was in there, where it was, came from. It's possible. I did not look to see who wrote that episode, but it's possible it was something that came from whoever wrote it. Maybe a family name there. Maybe, in fact, I'm going to check that right now. I'm back, and I looked in my handy copy of Goodnight John Boy, and indeed, the episode was written by Earl Hamner. So my guess is that it is probably a family name someplace on his family tree. This question is from Stage Fright, who said, I always look forward to your Ask Judy segments. Good questions, good answers, good information. Thank you. He said, that clip you showed on Franklin Canyon, the lake was clearly well lit. I'm thinking the scene is lit by natural sunlight, or is the scene lit with studio lighting? I imagine it takes time to set up an outdoor shot, dragging cables, generators, maybe building scaffolding or using cranes, etc., for example, to get a 2-minute shot was worth it. The quality of the show, as well as the scenic views, was impressive. There's something else I wanted to ask. Okay, so let me address this one first time. So this was in the episode, The Children's Carol, and they would not have built scaffolding or things like that, and it's too large an area to try to put big, giant lights. They would not have been able to carry that much distance. So in that case, it would have been natural light, but we did have these big reflector boards, these big giant reflector boards. So my sense would be that they would use those and bounce as much light onto the lake as they could. It also, despite the fact that it is supposed to be a Christmas story, so it's around Christmas time, which is interesting that lake had no level of frost around it. When in the backyard, there were points where we sort of saw signs of snow. But anyway, we're going to forego that for the moment. But it would not have been shot at that time of year was the point I'm leading to. So we would have shot that, probably late summer or something like that. So it would have been, probably a very lovely California sunny day, so probably a lot of natural reflection. And they may have even chosen the time of day to get the best light on that. They didn't choose to do it late in the day where there would have been shadows on the lake. So, some planning in there. Because of the kind of timeline and hence budget we were working on, because time is money, we were not prone to building scaffoldings and things like that. If they wanted the camera up high, they had a big crane that they could bring in, and they would just, raise the camera up high on that crane, and that was how they would handle some of those shots. Whether they needed that out there for that, it would have been more work to take the crane out there, so I don't know that they did that. Just great weather in general. And then you had another question. But yes, they did. Obviously, there were things closer up that they did have to bring in lights and stuff. So they would have to generator, drag cables, all of that when we went out onto location. So all of that were the reasons why they didn't like to have to do a lot of location shooting. It was just a lot of equipment to move around and a lot of work for the crew. And again, it took time. So time, money, you're seeing the pattern here. So then you said, something else I wanted to ask, how realistic were the props on the show? For example, when John Walton Sr. pointed the rifle at the guy trying to steal their money, was it a real rifle or maybe a plastic kid's toy, or the times in the kitchen slicing and dicing food? Were they real knives or fake kitchen utensils? Okay, so the props tended to be pretty much real. Of course, a gun would not be loaded, but they would have likely been real rifles or studio rifles. I mean, it wouldn't have been a kid's toy, but I don't know if there were, guns and those types of things that were designed to be used for props. That I don't know, because I never worked with any of the rifles or guns or anything like that on that show. When I did work on a show where we were working with a gun, it was a real gun. And there was a whole protocol with that whenever you're working with guns. So the fact that I don't recall that, chances are it was some sort of a prop gun, but not necessarily a kid's plastic one, because they wanted it to look real. Also, another couple of episodes where you saw shots of this lake, the same lake that was used, were also in the episode The Courtship, when Uncle Cody is courting Cordelia. They went for a picnic out by that same lake. Again, beautiful, lovely lighting. And also in the episode The Calling, when Jim Bob is spending time with Mary Frances, that they also spent time by that same lake. And again, lots of beautiful light on that lake. So it's just nicely positioned, and obviously it reflected light well. Meg Fuchs asked this question. The character of Alan Timmons was on The Milestone? ? Can someone tell me in what scene or in regards to what? I've seen every episode numerous times, and I do not remember him appearing in this episode. Thank you. So he was not in this episode, and he is not credited at the end of the episode. When you see the various different credits at the end of an episode, he is not credited there. Sometimes names get added to shows, like on the Internet Movie Database. It'll say that somebody was in something that they weren't in. I'm not sure exactly how it happens. Like, for instance, Sally Boyden is listed as being in The Homecoming as Tess, and she's not in The Homecoming. So sometimes things like that just get kind of a little mixed up. So I think even if he were in the episode and then a scene was cut, he might have still been credited. So that's the only other thing that could have happened, was perhaps he had some scene that got cut. And so because he ended up on the editing room floor, they also cut his name from the credits. But I have a feeling he just wasn't in the episode. Thank you for joining me for this segment of Ask Judy. I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons, about episodes, more questions in an Ask Judy, and more special guests. Thanks for watching.